What's up, y'all? My name is Connor, and today I'm going to show you how to get a really cool, creepy Halloween picture for your Instagram. I'm here at the Mallory Neely house in downtown Memphis, Tennessee. It's in this neighborhood called the Victorian Village, and there's a few other Victorian-style houses that were built in the 1800s. The wealthiest people in Memphis used to live here. As for how that relates to today, it means they make for hella good Halloween pictures. I came up with this idea for this picture a couple months ago, and I've been waiting to implement it and have the timing right. So I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do, what steps I'm gonna take to make this photo in person and in post-processing. First, I'm gonna show you the setup that I'm gonna do for this picture. All right, y'all, so here's the setup. I got my camera on a tripod a little bit below eye level, so I can give the house a sense of like grandiose and largeness by having it lower to the ground. Then what I'm gonna do to make this a really cool Halloween picture is I'm gonna turn that long exposure on, and for the first 3 seconds of the photo, I'm gonna run over here. And when the first 3 seconds elapse, I'm gonna move off screen so it looks like I'm gonna be faded through like a ghost when the final picture comes out. Alright, I am back in my car. I'm really happy with how the pictures turned out. So let's go back home and get these edited and make them look really spooky. We are now back at the house ready to get this edit going. I'm super excited for how the picture turned out, but the fun has just begun. So let's get into Lightroom and start this edit. Alright, so here we are in Lightroom. We got the raw file here. Let's just hit D to go to the Develop tab. Let's get started here. So the first thing I'm gonna do, which I usually do with all the pictures I take, is I'm gonna crop the picture. And since it's going on Instagram, I'm gonna do a 4x5 and go from there. And that looks pretty good. So the next thing we're gonna do is start with our basic adjustments. I usually have my white balance set to auto, but for this time I'm just gonna see what it looks like as it was shot. And I think that looks better. So I'm gonna leave it as shot. My profile is Adobe Color, and let's get started with the other adjustments. I'm gonna leave my exposure right where it's at, but I'm gonna bring my contrast up just a little bit. Don't worry if it looks weird now, it'll all look fine in the end. About right there. I'm gonna leave my shadows alone. I'm gonna bring my whites up to brighten things up a little bit, and I'm gonna bring those blacks down. Alright, on to the Presence tab. I'm gonna boost the clarity just a little bit. Even though I said I don't like to apply my clarity to the whole picture in the last video, when it comes to pictures with buildings, it usually doesn't hurt to add a little bit of clarity just to define those edges and nuances in the building a little more. I'm gonna bring up the vibrance, and just like we did in the last video, I'm gonna bring the saturation down to give more of that moody look that we're going for. Alright, so I'm gonna leave that done for our basic adjustments, and next we're gonna move to the tone curve. And I use a pretty standard point curve for all my pictures, so I'm just gonna apply that preset. So the first thing I'm gonna do is bring these highlights up just to give the highlights more brightness, because we brought them down in the basic adjustments, which I think reveals more of the detail in the highlights. Bringing them back up here will just bring that brightness that highlights have back into the picture. And then I'm also going to boost our lights to make the image brighter. And I'm gonna leave the darks and shadows where they're at. Next, we're gonna go to our HSL tab. The colors in this picture look a little yellowy and kind of muddy. I don't really like how the colors look, so I'm gonna try to warm them up in the house. And I'm gonna take this green out. Let's bring our red hue down. There's a little bit of red in the brick, but it's mostly orange. I'm gonna bring the orange down just a little bit. I'm gonna bring our yellows down a lot. Let's go for about right here. I'm gonna bring our greens all the way down. And there's not really any blues or purples in this picture, so I'm just gonna leave those. Next, for saturation, I'm gonna bring up the red, bring up the orange a lot. I'm gonna bring down the yellow. Again, because I thought the picture looked a little too yellow, so I'm going to bring down the yellows. I'm just going to completely get rid of the green, because when you think of spooky Halloween fall pictures, usually things aren't very green. Now I know I said there wasn't any blue in this picture, but I'm just going to go ahead and drop that blue all the way just to get rid of any other blues to keep the color palette more consistent. And I'm going to leave that done for the saturation. Next, we're going to go on to luminance. First, I'm going to start with the orange. Bring up the orange just a little bit. Bring our yellows up just a little bit. I'm gonna bring up our greens a lot since we desaturated them so much. And I'm gonna bring my blues down just to bring out any detail that might be in the sky. And that's it for HSL. Split toning, I kind of want more of a cool feel in this picture, so I'm gonna put just blue highlights and shadows into this picture. If you ever want to know what color you're working with, if you're on a Mac, press Option on your keyboard, and while you drag this across the hues, it will show you which color you're on. So I'm gonna go with a really cool blue. Right there looks good. And I'm just gonna make it the same on the shadows. Next we're going to detail. I always bring up the masking on my sharpening just because I don't want to sharpen any of the noise in my pictures. So about right there looks good. Bring up sharpening just a little bit more. Noise reduction, we could benefit from a little bit of it, so I'll just do about 8%. And I'll leave my color noise reduction where it is. Lens corrections or automatic. Transform we're not going to do. Vignette, we're going to add a slight vignette and feather that out. And we're not going to do any calibration. Alright, so that is it for our regular adjustments, but now what's really going to make the picture stand out is doing our graduated filters and brush adjustments. I'm going to start with the graduated filters, and I'm going to go for some ones that darken this area so that your eye will be led up to the house instead of being distracted by anything over here. Let's bring our exposure down, bring our highlights down, and our shadows down too. First we're going to bring it up from this side. Then we're going to bring another one up from this side. Alright, so I think those look pretty good, but I want to keep this pathway here lit up. So I'm going to go to my brush and erase. And here's the cool feature I just found recently. You can auto mask your brushes in Lightroom. So when you paint along an edge, it will mask to that edge and not spill over into another area of the picture. So as you can see, the grass is staying dark, but I'm lightening up the sidewalk. That looks good. Now let's do it for the other filter. And those filters look good. So now we're going to make a new filter, and this is going to be a pretty complicated filter. Let's go ahead and bring this filter down into the picture. I'm going to bring it way down here. And I don't want it to fade too much, so I'm going to bring this up and drag it back down because I want it to cover basically everywhere where the sky is showing. Next, I'm going to lower the exposure. Don't worry, we will fix the house. I'm going to lower the highlights so I can bring out that sky. I'm going to increase the clarity quite a bit to define those clouds more again. Same with the dehaze. And to smooth out the noise in those clouds a little bit, I'm going to bring up our noise reduction, and just to make those trees look a little nicer, I'm going to bring up the defringe. Now this part is really going to make the house stand out because we're going to remove this whole graduated filter off the house. The way we're going to do that is just like we did with these other filters. We're going to get our brush, we're going to put it on erase, and put it on auto mask. And we're just going to erase once my computer catches up. See what I mean now? That sky really looks a lot more spooky and ominous, and the house still stands out, so I really like this adjustment. Okay, so the last adjustment we're going to do here is an exposure brush just to bring up the house and my face and body a little bit more. So let's zoom in, open up a brush, and a basic dodge brush will be good enough for this. If you don't know how to do brush presets, it's right here. It opens up this menu, and we're just going to brush. And I'm not going to brighten up my shirt per se because it's so dark. I'm just going to brighten up my skin. Now let's zoom out, and I'm going to use that same brush to brighten the house up. And for this we can turn our auto mask back on and paint the house. And I think that looks good. So now that we've baked our cake, let's put that icing on top. And the icing is going to be some bats up above the house. Before we go into Photoshop though, we're going to have to get a PNG file from Google of some bats flying. I already downloaded mine and it's on the desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and open this picture in Photoshop. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop. The first thing we're going to do is open File. I'm going to open this transparent bat flying PNG. So here's the file as it's going to appear in Photoshop. And the first thing we're going to do is go to Edit, define Brush Preset, and you can name your brush whatever you want. It's just going to be this picture. I already made mine, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Cancel. After we do that, we're going to go to our picture. We're going to go to Brush. And if the bats don't show up immediately, you can go up to this little menu right here and scroll down to Special Effects Brushes. And mine are all the way here at the bottom, so I'm going to go with that. Now we're just going to find where we want our bats in the picture, and you can change the size if you want. And I'm just going to place them right here. If you want to put more, you can shrink the picture and add some more bats. You can go crazy with bats if you want. But I'm not going to have that many bats, so I'm going to take them out. Oops. And there you have it. After you make this, you go to File, Export to your desktop, and you're good to go. Alright y'all, that's going to conclude this really long tutorial. I'm glad you stuck it out with me. Hope you learned a lot. If you go and make your own version of this picture on Instagram, I want you to tag me in the picture at Connor D. Ryan, and I'd love to see what y'all make. This was just my take on it. We're lucky here in Memphis that we have that really cool Victorian village where I could go take pictures, but I want to see what y'all have from wherever you live. I love Halloween. It's one of my favorite holidays, and I just love how people get creative with it. So yeah, tag me in your pictures, and I will see you in the next video.